Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, two things I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the end of days. I swear to God, I really feel like 2024. We're at the end of the book. We're at the end of our rope. I truly believe that. And I'm going to talk about earthquakes because there's been 3 earthquakes all around the world in the last 3 days. And I feel like it's the end of days. For an East Coast guy, I've actually been in a couple decent-sized earthquakes, and I want to share on an East Coast perspective for somebody that's not familiar with earthquakes, what I felt in those earthquakes. I'm going to talk about that too. Okay, so the end of days. I see these earthquakes. There's been one in New York City that was just yesterday, a 2.1. The links will be down below for this. Actually, New York City on the East Coast, we do have earthquakes here. There's earthquakes in Connecticut. There's I think it's called a failed fault line in Connecticut. And there's earthquakes in Maine. So there was an earthquake in New York City, 2.1. There was a 4.1 in California on New Year's Day. And then there's the day before that, there was a 7.6, which is an ungodly, large, crazy earthquake in Japan. So there's been pretty much earthquakes all around the world, which happens usually, but this, I really get, it's just the start of the year. And, with the election at the end of the year, I just got a bad feeling for this year. I really do. First of all, I'm going to read you guys, this is from the Bible for the end. I'm not getting all religious, don't worry about it. The end of days, and some of the signs that Jesus said were the signs for the end of days. Now, supposedly, the end of days started in 1914 with World War I. So we've been in this last chapter, so to speak, for a while now, and I swear to God, especially with these earthquakes, the last couple of days, the way we're starting off 2024, and the election at the end of the year, I honestly feel like my days are numbered here. Our days are numbered here. I hate to. I'm not a pessimistic guy, but I swear to God, I really have that feeling. Okay, so these are the signs from the Bible for the end of days. The end of the world, the apocalypse, war on a large scale. Okay, now that could be construed as anything. There's the Ukraine, Israel, famine. There's always famine around the world. Unfortunately, here in America, I think it's like 2/3 of Americans are overweight, which is just as much of a disgusting problem as famine. Great earthquakes. Need I say more? Crime. I saw that thing with Ian Ziering and everything else that's going on in the country. Now, I'm a Democrat, and I try not. I don't really feel that crime is any worse than it's ever been. It's actually gone down in a lot of respects over the last couple of years. Ruining of Earth. Now, as a Democrat and as a liberal, I definitely, I don't think I can't question that. The rising seas and melting poles and everything else that's going on in the world. Deteriorating attitudes. I really see Trump supporters as deteriorating attitudes with the anger and the hate and the intolerance and the just burn everything down kind of attitude. To me, that's deteriorating attitudes. Breakdown of family. I think that's been going on for a long time, honestly. Over 50% of couples get divorced, I think. It's probably higher than that now. Diminished love of God. I'm not going to get all religious on you, but religious hypocrisy. Oh my God. Let's talk about that. The majority of evangelical people across this country supporting Donald Trump. If that's not religious hypocrisy, I don't know what is. You know what? I heard that explained. I actually heard that explained. I'll say it really briefly on how evangelicals look at Donald Trump. They think that the days of being a good Christian are over. That there's such evil in the world that they kind of need a bad guy to be their hero. This is what I heard an evangelical explain this. Why they support Donald Trump. So they want this bad guy to be their saving grace, their hero, to go on, because with Christians you're supposed to turn the other cheek, but they've gotten this this hypocrisy now where they think they need a bad guy, a hero out in front that's not constrained by their morals to just go nuts on everybody else and protect them. Seriously, I heard evangelicals say that. Okay, widespread apathy and ridicule. I mean, need I say more? Okay, now let me talk about the earthquakes. I've been in a couple earthquakes. Let me tell you guys this from. I'm an East Coast guy. I was born in Connecticut. And I've actually been in 2, if not 3, earthquakes. And let me tell you about them. When I was 12 years old, in 1978. I was visiting relatives in Maine, in the top of Maine, and there was actually, I think it was a 4 point something earthquake, 3 or 4, a high 3, low 4. And I was laying on the floor in the living room like my cousins, and my family thought the furnace exploded or something. The thing with earthquakes that I noticed, like I said, I'm not a West Coast person that's used to these all the time. But it was the ungodly noise. It sounded like thunder, except coming from the ground. That's the only way I could explain it. And I was laying on the floor, and I could feel the floor shaking. And it's like I said, for somebody that's not used to earthquakes, being from the East Coast, it's kind of terrifying. It really is. I mean, if you're from the West Coast, it's just part of. I think it's part of your everyday thing. And like I said, I was 12 years old, and it turned out there's fault lines running through this area. And New York City just had an earthquake. The other one was more of aftershocks, and you guys got to hear this story. I actually landed in San Francisco. I went out to visit friends. We went out to stay there for a couple of months in San Jose, actually, but I landed at San Francisco Airport. And I was ready to take off the next day, right? And this was on October 16th, 1989, okay? And I got a phone call from my mother. And she said, "Are you watching the news? Right? I'm supposed to take off. My plane's going to leave in about 15 hours for San Francisco." And she said, "Are you watching the news? An earthquake just hit San Francisco." It was the World Series earthquake. I landed in San Francisco at the airport not even 24 hours after the San Francisco earthquake. And I went through a whole number of aftershocks after I landed there. So like I said, I got this call from my family. And the pictures were all over the television. Where this is the one where the highway collapsed on the upper level, collapsed onto the lower level, like it was on the news back in if you're my age, 1989. And there was a picture of a building that had collapsed, and they were having 2x4s to prop it up. If you're my age, you remember these pictures. And I saw these pictures, so I had to call the airport to make sure we were still taking off the next day, and we did take off. And I remember, we flew the 5 or 6 hours out to California nonstop, and we're about to land in San Francisco. And I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, the minute those wheels, because there's always they say there's the chance that there's going to be a bigger earthquake within 24 hours of one major earthquake. And I was terrified. I remember coming down into San Francisco Airport. I see all these every house has a swimming pool. When I landed in LA, I remember seeing that. Every house, I see swimming pools in every single yard. It's something from being from the East Coast. It's kind of weird. And once those wheels touched down, I was like, oh my God, I'm here now. And I stayed in San Jose. And I never got to see the city of San Francisco for that whole month. It was closed off. Unless you lived there, you couldn't get into San Francisco. Like I said, the highways collapsed. There was buildings on fire and all that. And I went to visit San Francisco, and I couldn't go into this actual city. So I spent most of the time in San Jose. And then we took a ride down to Los Angeles and stayed there for a while. I remember the earthquakes. There were aftershocks. This initial earthquake, the World Series earthquake in 1989, was a 6.9. And I remember feeling it was a 4.4, 4.6 aftershock from that earthquake the day I landed. And you got to remember, I was using back then. And I was using, let's just say I was using stimulants. So we were up all night, and I was already all paranoid and revved up. And all of a sudden, like again, you hear that ungodly sound. Like I said, it sounds like thunder from the ground. And I remember just hearing the sound and then feeling the floor shake, and like the feeling that I couldn't go anywhere. Like the floor was moving so much that I couldn't go 10 feet across the kitchen. because the floor was just moving back and forth. Like wherever I was staying there. And I remember seeing I swear to God, I remember seeing the refrigerator actually bounce away from the wall, just shake. And, and it was, like I said, I was using it at the time, so it was freaking weird, man. There was another aftershock the next day, and we were out on the patio. It was overhanging. It was a patio up on the second floor, and it was an overhanging cement slab that, we go out on the deck. And again, all of a sudden you start hearing this rumbling from the ground and everything starts shaking. I remember seeing the telephone poles going like this. Like I said, being from the East Coast, it was just something. It was bizarre. It felt like I was in a movie or something. And I remember actually seeing there was an in-ground pool, right? You could see it right from the deck, and I remember seeing the waves in the pool start to splash. In-ground pool, waves starting to splash out of the pool from the water splashing around inside this huge in-ground pool. Like I said, it was the most bizarre things. Being from the East Coast, it was terrifying, man. And I remember the package stores. Back then, it was all glass bottles, like I said, and I was using and drinking every day. So, we wanted to go to the package store. And most of the package stores were closed because all of the shelves, all the glass bottles fell off the shelves. And everything, the whole stock in the entire, like all the hard liquor in the entire liquor store. Like I said, back then, it was mostly glass bottles. Everything was smashed. And you couldn't even go to, a lot of the package stores weren't even open. So we ended up just going to convenience stores buying beer back then. And, it was weird. From being an East Coast guy, it was kind of terrifying. So those are some of my takes on the earthquakes or aftershocks that I was in. Like I said, I really got I'm an optimistic guy, but I got a bad feeling about this year. I really do. I really feel like we're on the last chapter. Let me know what you think. I'm going to be back later with another video. I've been saving a video. I did this video talking about channels that ask you to subscribe. What's it called? Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button down, and I do not do that, and I'll tell you why in the video coming up. I've had this video I've had it done I've had the thumbnails all made for about 5 days now, and I haven't downloaded it yet. I'm going to download it today, so check that out. You guys have a great Wednesday.